Okay, today we're going to talk about some more updates. This has to deal with the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts. And when I did the last show, I didn't have all the information that developed, and so I want to go over that in a very quick manner here today. So let's do a quick timeline. October 27th, Tucker Carlson, who's clearly pro-Russian, interviews Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is, of course, pro-Hitler, pro-Nazis, anti-Jewish, anti-women, anti-black, and this is pretty much documented on his Wikipedia page, so you can go take a look at that and read it in detail. That was October 27th. Carlson, I did not watch the interview. All the reviews I heard of the interview was it was a real softball because obviously Carlson likes this guy, or at least likes his message that Fuentes is putting out. So Carlson does that. Then then there's a big uproar. There's a big furor that comes about because Fuentes is known for his positions that are, like I said, they're anti-Semitic, anti-women, anti-black, and so on. October 30th, a Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts gives about a 2 minute and 39-second spiel, puts it up there on X. That causes a furor, and the board of directors of the Heritage Foundation were pressured to do something about Roberts. So that developed over the weekend. Roberts gives a non-apology apology on November 3rd. On November 5th, he does a struggle session in the afternoon with the staff of the Heritage Foundation. A lot comes out during that 2-3 hour meeting, and more as it continues to come on out, even as I speak to you. In the meantime, ISI, the Intercollegiate Studies Institution, I believe those are the words. ISI comes out. They have a meeting November 7th. There's a movement to remove the president because of various activities, which I'm going to talk about. And on November 10th, then former board members advise what the problem is. They write a letter. In sum, what we are seeing is the takeover of the think tanks, the conservative movement in America by radicals, by fascists, by Nazis, by national conservatives or NatCons as they're sometimes called, and they hold to these ideas which I mentioned before, which are ultra nationalists that break unity, that position the state as the ultimate arbiter of right and wrong, good and right, and good and evil in the international sphere. It ignores the international moral order that exists, that humanity has known, America has known, and the Catholic Church has known for centuries. Okay, so this is really a devolutionary movement that is taking control of the American conservative movement. But this devolution helps who? It helps the Russians, and it helps the tyrants, and it helps some of the tech bros and the transnational elites. Because what it does, it breaks everyone up, gets everybody fighting each other, so they can't coordinate a response to these people who want to be tyrants. And so as a result, the tyrants are easier. It's easier for them to rule. Okay. That's the big picture I'm going to go through. This is in the context of the Catholic problem. Remember, I said the Catholics in public life, in many cases, if not most, seem to have a problem in America. They seem to be unable to follow their own religion. And so what you have is you have these people who are deeply disordered from some personal trauma or drama, twisting the Catholic religion and claiming to use it. I think J.D. Vance is one such person. I talked about Roberts. Kevin Roberts, the Heritage Foundation, his problems, being a fractured family, a brother who committed suicide, alcoholism in his family. And so now we're dealing with Nick Fuentes. Okay, so I mean, what do we know about Nick Fuentes? Well, I mean, you can go to his Wikipedia page, like I said, and just quoting from it. He's a Catholic, identifies with the traditional Catholic movement, is an integralist, Christian nationalist. He says you're either a Catholic or with the Jews. He's voiced support for Catholic government, Catholic media, supports a Catholic theocracy instead of a Jewish occupied government. He supports autocracy, Catholic monarchy, the Crusades, the Inquisition. He opposes democracy. This is all on Wikipedia. He holds anti-Semitic views. Another source and I believe it's from November 8th, Washington Post, by Will Oramos. The article is called Far Right Provocateur Nick Fuentes is Triggering a MAGA Civil War. Um, Quotes Fuentes as saying that Hitler is awesome. Blacks need to go to prison. Women need to be shut up. Jews need to get rid of. And elsewhere, I think he also says that, and it may be on Twitter, and I don't have the exact site. Also, Fuentes says the Jews need to be put to death. Okay, well, this isn't Catholic. Okay, this is barbaric. This is the opposite of civilization. Okay, all right, because what he's talking about is dehumanizing people, and he's basically saying your status makes you what you are, and you're not going to have any value, and so that's his point. So that is not Catholic, even though he claims to be Catholic, claims to be a traditional Catholic. Okay, so look at his Wikipedia page. He talks about he's pro anti-Semitism. He's for a foreign policy that supports authoritarian regimes. So he fits in here. With the new conservative, the national conservative movement in America. He fits in with the Tucker Carlsons who are advancing Russian geopolitical goals, with the Kevin Roberts, with all these people who are trying to destroy America, who wrote Project 2025, trying to weaken the American state, pull America out of the global arena, and basically have the world devolve into these squabbling, feuding little tribes all over the world. Okay, so he fits into this group. Okay, so of course it's natural that Tucker Carlson would interview him, give him the softball questions, because if he was asked hard questions, he would turn off a lot of people. But Tucker Carlson asked him softball questions. Tucker Carlson gets attacked. Roberts comes to Tucker Carlson's defense. Of course, these guys are all birds of a feather. They all flock together. I mean, that may not be sufficient for a criminal prosecution and indictment, but it sure is enough to know who your friends and enemies are, and to know who is working for who. Okay, so this is Nick Fuentes, and he is another guy who's working against American interests. He's and against the church interests and against church teaching. Okay, and we'll talk about how he got these ideas at another time. I want to move on now to Roberts' X speech that he put out on X or Twitter on October 30th. I watched it, about 2 minutes 39 seconds long. Okay, so it has these themes of sectarianism, and I believe anti-Israel, and it's clearly anti-American. So he starts out with Christian quote, and everything. These are quotes. Quotes: Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. Okay, so right away it's sectarian. He's saying, well, we're Christians versus Jews, okay? Not U.S. citizens, not that Israel is an ally. And it's a critique of Israel, the state, all right, which implicates all of these crazy theological ideas about Israel that are now getting some currency in various religious or quasi-religious circles. So it's you attack, you question, critique the state, not the policies, but the state. You don't critique American policy with Israel. You critique the Israeli state. Okay, so when you critique or criticize, not everybody's suitable for doing that. And a lot of times this whole idea of critique of Israel and critique of Israel policies is just a cover for an attack on Israel, to condemn it. Because in order to do such critique right, you got to know what you're talking about, and you got to be fair-minded, and you got to have the facts, and most people don't have it. And most of the time it's just trolls saying they're critiquing Israel. Okay, he says anti-Semitism should be condemned. Well, no, it is condemned. Okay, that should be. It is. And and so that's and then he goes on and says, quote, my loyalty as a Christian and as an American is to Christ first. Again, the sectarian aspect of it, which is creating division, not common ground. A lot of Americans are not Christian. So, of course, he's highlighting there's Christians and Jews. And then he goes on and says, when it serves the interest of the United States to cooperate with Israel and other countries or other allies, then we should. Well, they're an ally for a reason, and we want to keep our alliances strong. And so we don't really pick and choose what issues we want to cooperate with. We need to work together and come together to have a system of cooperation and a system of dealing with the world, which is one that is infused with these four principles I've talked about before. The focus on the person, community of nations, peace, and the rule of law. And we have to understand and defend these multilateral institutions, which is something that Kevin Roberts and a lot of people in the national conservative movement don't want to do. Once again, it's kind of a skewed idea of what things are supposed to be, and he always leaves an escape hatch, and is not really interested in building a better world. He just simply wants to keep alive this idea, that poor America, we've been beset with enemies and stuff, and we've been taken advantage of by our allies. Well, we have been beset by enemies. So we do have enemies. Okay, we do have to deal with these enemies. The best way to do it is by working with our allies. Okay. That is the essence of what I wanted to talk about. He went on to say that Tucker Carlson is a close friend of the Heritage Foundation, close friend of Kevin Roberts, and then he says that there's a Venomous Coalition who is attacking him, meaning Tucker Carlson, and are sowing division. And their attempt to cancel him will fail. He goes on to say the American people expect us to favor our political. Let's see, on the left, to basically fight our political adversaries on the left and not attack our friends on the right. So it's this idea of no friends, I have no enemies to the right. So what he's basically doing, he's reinforcing these national conservative ideas, that we're going to let in basically people on the right who are national conservatives, who are Nazis and fascists, and we're going to pursue our interests first on the national stage, and it's going to be sectarian, it's going to be divisive by its very nature. Okay, so that was his talk on things started to blow up on the 31st. On the 3rd of November, he gave a non-apology apology. About this time, a letter came out from a guy by the name of Daniel Mail, M-A-E-L, and Mail has a podcast, he's on X. And this letter came out in February of 2025, and he posted the letter. And the letter confirms everything I've said about Roberts. He's a disordered individual. Kevin Roberts swears at staff, quote, Kevin Roberts swears at staff meetings, uses the F word on staff. KR admits he has anger management, control, and rage issues in staff meetings after his explosions and tells us that he goes to Roman Catholic confessions for this, which is supposed to heal everything. He says his wife calls him out for his anger management issues. I am frightened for my physical safety when he suddenly, and for minor reasons, flies into a rage. Well, the guy's got problems. Roberts has got problems, and he thinks that the religion is going to fix it, but it doesn't. And what happens is you need counseling. You need to deal with these issues with professionals. And so what's happening is he's doubling down on this religion thing, and he is becoming a fanatic, and he's destroying or trying to destroy America, which the church has approved, and I'm going to talk about that in another show, has approved as a system of organization. So then the letter goes on to say, Roberts has a huge ego problem. As a result of many insecurities, he dismisses all long-standing Heritage Foundation employees. Anyone who disagrees with him is dismissed as an establishment Republican. His behavior with board members is totally different. He knows how to behave around them when he wants to. Then he recounts some instance where he was really rude to a donor of who was the wife of a congressman. And that got a lot of negative press in Washington. So apparently, Roberts is losing and has lost a lot of cachet. So the letter goes on and says, Roberts has an affirmative action policy for Roman Catholics. Catholics are favored over everyone else. True academic scholars have left and been replaced with people with inferior qualifications. Roberts insists we support all Roman Catholic teachings, and he has turned the Heritage Foundation into a sectarian Catholic organization. Well, Roberts doesn't know all the Catholic teachings, obviously, as I'm telling you. Roberts insists that single women without children are failures. The HAFA, which is the Heritage Foundation Action Committee, whatever it is, communications team is staffed exclusively and run by homosexuals. And no one is telling them that they must get married and have children. So The activist arm of the Heritage Foundation, which is relatively new, is staffed exclusively and run by homosexuals. Okay, Roberts put him in there. For all of Roberts' bootlicking of the Trump team, the senior management has been barred from getting jobs in Trump administration. Quality of heritage scholarship has seriously declined. Our interns are substandard. Most are now required to be Catholics from little colleges I've never even heard of. Brooke Rollins apparently hired him for the Heritage Foundation or for the Texas Foundation for Public Policy, TFPP, years ago. And she regrets hiring him and does not want to assist the Heritage Foundation. Then Roberts jokes in staff meetings about his good use of his shovel when referring to his killing of his neighbor's dog. All right? Which anyone can read about online. And of course, Roberts denied that. Of course, he's going to deny that. All right, so that is a letter that came out around November 2nd, November 3rd. It shows just how sick Roberts is. The Heritage Struggle session was November 5th. Some people call for his removal. It was about 2-3 hours long. It was with the staff. I watched the guy's face for part of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but it was a lot of negative feedback thrown at him. He's just insincere. I've watched Faces for years. I assess him as being a liar and a manipulator. But again, I think he's a very disordered individual. November 7th, there was an article from the Wall Street Journal by Party and Severance. There's last names of the two authors. Quote, the crack up at the Heritage Foundation is a warning sign for MAGA world. And in the article, it talks about a Heritage sponsor, Tucker Carlson. They actually bought sponsorship on his program. The Heritage staff meeting on Wednesday, November 5th, illustrated a generational divide among conservatives over Carlson. Several veteran staffers expressed concerns. At least one staffer said Gen Z staff think tank agree with the substance of Roberts' video and express support for Carlson. That's the difficulty in the conservative movement right now, is trying to figure out how we can all respect each other's differences of opinions, according to Roberts. According to members or employees at the Heritage Foundation, and let me go back a second. This thing about the split between Gen Z and other members of the population, I think is overblown. I think it is a story that's being told. Rod Dreher recently said something like 30 to 40% of Gen Zers on Capitol Hill are Groypers or pro Fuentes, or agree and therefore agree with Roberts, as I understand his comments from a few days ago. Well, that has been debunked by a number of different people. I don't believe it either. I think Dreher is trying to tell us what to believe, and I don't think that's correct. But what we have here is, let's see, so the Wall Street Journal article goes on and says employees working on the Ukraine policy were asked to watch Carlson monologues, which were rife with conspiracy theories about the Ukraine war, to delete past tweets in support of Ukraine, and to write papers reflecting the new, more isolationist policy that Roberts had embraced, according to Luke Coffey, who is the former director of Heritage Foreign Policy Center. For me, that's when I knew the one voice policy was gone, and it was a one man's policy, said Coffey, who resigned as a result of the organization's policy reversal on Ukraine. And by May of 2022, Heritage was lobbying Republicans on Capitol Hill to vote against an aid package for Ukraine. This proposed Ukraine aid package takes money away from priorities of American people, spends it our taxpayer dollars on a foreign nation without any accountability, said Roberts Group Heritage Foundation. Okay, so that is on Roberts. Now, what happened on November 7th, and it was written about in a letter on November 10th, an open letter to the conservative cause, and let me pull it up here if I can get it, concerned ISI, which is Intercollegiate Studies program, and it comes from a past board member, past president, past CEO, Christopher Long, and the other guy is Thomas Lynch. And the letter went out on Twitter on November 10th. And it says an open letter to the conservative movement. The battle for the heart and soul of the American conservative movement is being fought on many fronts. with the latest trench warfare occurring in the boardrooms of long-standing and most influential foundations and think tanks. The recent controversy at the Heritage points out how conservative and venerable institutions have been infiltrated and quietly taken over by tight-knit fringe group of post-liberal thinkers who believe America has been off the rails since its founding. In their minds, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution must take a back seat to usher in a new post-democratic, post-capitalist economic system that advocates isolationism, an immigration ban, and a domestic policy that blurs distinctions between church and state. While often described as MAGA or populist, this group is more tightly aligned to the philosophy of media crank Tucker Carlson than President Trump's agenda. Well, I mean, they're both, you know, anti-American. As longtime board members and leaders of ISI, the oldest conservative campus organization in America, founded in 1953 by William Buckley, we have fought to preserve ISI's longstanding mission from falling victim to post-liberal hijacking. Then he goes on, asks the fellow trustees to terminate the current president, who was Johnny Burtka, who formerly served as executive director of the post-liberal journal American Conservative Magazine, and return ISI to its core academic work of educating for liberty by helping American college students to learn and appreciate perennial ideas and timeless values that have made America great. He says the ISI under Johnny Burtka and Company has, and before I forget, on the Heritage Foundation, you got Arn from Hillsdale, and also you have Robert George, right? On Heritage Foundation, right? Princeton, big Catholic. Okay. So ISI is largely abandoned its on-campus philosophical program, which equip future leaders to better uphold American ideals. Instead, he writes, it focuses on ideological and political podcasts that have introduced audiences to alt-right online personalities, such as Tucker Carlson and others who seek to undermine the liberal ideas of the American founding. The fundamental shift in ISI's focus was done behind the board's back. Its new signal program, the podcast Project Cosmos, was dropped August 19th, featuring post-liberal icon Patrick Deneen and neo-reactionary Curtis Yarvin. Okay, these guys want a dictatorship. They want America to become a dictatorship. They're supported by tech bros. And, one of them is the Palantir CEO, Peter Thiel. And there are others. The three heritage directors, Larry Arnn, Michael Gleba, and Kevin Roberts, are also trustees of ISI, and they attended the November 7th meeting. None objected to or questioned the judgment of platforming Yarvin in Project Cosmos' inaugural episode. Yarvin is a self-described neo-reactionary, unapologetic monarchist, and a leader of the Dark Enlightenment movement who advocates for rebooting and replacing liberal democracy. He writes, if Americans want to change their government, they're going to have to get over their dictator phobia. I mean, he's a fellow traveler with Tucker Carlson, with Trump, with a lot of other people, with Putin, with a lot of other people, a lot of the tech bros. Then he goes on and says, then he goes on and details more that the leaders of the post-liberal project continue to be close friends with Carlson, Yarvin, and their ilk, to be open to discussion with the likes of Fuentes and other racists and anti-Semites, and to praise autocrats like Hungary's Viktor Orban. Carlson even lauds the social values of Venezuela's dictator, Nicolas Maduro. Okay. Traditional conservatives who believe in America's founding principles and look back at the Reagan Revolution as a step in the right direction need to wake up and understand the battle currently underway. And so what you're seeing is an attack on American founding principles. You're seeing the conservative movement being turned into this, what I believe is fascist, racist, MAGA Nazi-like movement, which is very harmful to America and to the world. Roberts is a big part of this, as I can tell. He's subverting America, subverting our alliances, and none of this is Catholic. And you have to understand that if you're a Catholic, the church has taken a look at the things I've talked about, which is that the primacy of the person, which requires the recognition of rights, keeping of alliances, working with this idea of a community of nations, the importance of the rule of law, and at the same time working for peace as the object. So I will talk more about that later. This is an update to let you know. I guess it's kind of another told you so, but this stuff is coming out. There was another about the problems that Roberts has. There's another post that Daniel Mail just put out. I guess it was yesterday, 14 hours ago. Maybe it was this morning. He quotes a Heritage staffer, doesn't name the staffer. He says, quote, "We're having all sorts of booking cancellations. Donors have been canceling on us. The staff are rebelling as they wonder if Heritage has a future. It is a mess. Kevin Roberts is a complete narcissist who's in total denial. As Kevin said at the all-staff meeting, he does not follow the news, but only follows sports." End of quotes. Well, that's ridiculous. People are supposed to work together, collaborate together for the common good in accordance with the natural law, which is what America always understood and which the church approved. That's all I've got for now. Stay tuned. We'll have some more coming up, and I want to thank you.